Hello, I wanted to make a video for you that explains the next part of the market research assignment. Now, you recall in a previous live session, I set you the task to go away and do a little bit of research into finding out about maybe a small enterprise that you know that has some form of market research, primary and secondary. And you'll also recall the task where we've been looking at what are the different types of primary and secondary research. So now on your screen, you're going to see the assignment, which I've got on the screen. Now, I did talk to you before about this assignment. And if you remember, my main focus is all about undertaking some primary market research and some secondary market research into a business of your choice. In other words, find out what research they do. Remember, I said two types of primary, two types of secondary. You've got the sheet already with the different types on. You've just got to try and fit it all in there. If you remember, the aim of this assignment is you're going to write a report to try and hopefully justify why they should use a specialist marketing research agency. And remember, that's like your Mintels and your Cantars. And we have looked at now, hopefully, enough market research to be able to do this. So I now want to, in this video, go through what I want you to start putting together. This document, by the way, student version assignment 1, is in the Teams area, and I'll show you in more detail at the end where you can find it from. So imagine the yellow part has been done. Now we're going to try and look at actually producing this report. Now this report you're going to do obviously needs to explain the types of market research methods used by your selected business. Remember, 2 primary, 2 secondary. You should aim to cover a full range of methods used by the business, but at least 2. So you can see there, it tells you in the assignment. Throughout your explanation, provide examples of how the research is used. So in other words, you've got to say they use this research to do X, Y, and Z. So that's got to be a line in there. So you can see it's telling you to do that already. And then for each type of research, the report will assess. So you've got to assess how appropriate and useful the method is at helping the business meet the organization's objectives. Now, if you think there straight away, you need to know the objectives of the marketing to then be able to say whether it helps them to meet them. So somewhere we've got to set out the objectives. And now, of course, it gives you an example here. For example, the purpose of the research was to gauge consumer reaction to a new advertisement. Then obviously you'd have to then say how well they are to achieving that aim. And then obviously down here you've got your justification part where your distinction is. Finally, justify the use of specialist marketing research agencies to allow the research. However, we want to focus on this first section here. In other words, what are the objectives? What research do they do? How does it help them? And you have to write a briefing paper. Now, what that means is, in simple terms, we have to set out a document in a certain way. And down below here, I've got you a format. You could potentially copy and paste this because the bits in red are where you'd be writing, and obviously the format's there. So a briefing format would typically have the name of the person you're writing to. So who is the person that you're writing to? It could be the name of the person. So if the owner of the business is called John, for example, you put John, manager or business owner or managing director, whatever you want to call them. Or obviously you could just write the title of the person, business owner or CEO, whatever the title of the person is. Then you put the date of the briefing paper. So that's obviously going to be the date at the moment. I mean, I put there 18th of March. Potentially you could put today's date. It doesn't really matter, but you'd have date and then you'd have the date underneath. You wouldn't have these bullet point parts here, but again, it'd be a document set out. Then you'd have the subject. So the subheading would be subject, and then you'd literally have the bit in red. So it'd say, a report examining the types of market research used by whatever your business name and the benefits to whatever the business name of using a marketing research agency. Now, this is where your first part of your real task starts here, the background part. You need to set out in a briefing paper the background to the report. So you provide a summary of the past and current events, basically what's going on. In other words, in the background, your first paragraph tells the reader what the organization does. So whatever the company name is a business which is located in wherever. It specializes in the selling of whatever. It typically operates whatever hours, for example, and it typically advertises to whatever customers, right? So you're getting like a little paragraph in about like what it does. Then your next paragraph goes into the marketing objectives. Now remember, SMART objectives: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So you need to set out your SMART objectives for the organization. So what do they set themselves for marketing objectives? If you are stuck on this and you're not 100% sure on what they set, Go and have a look on Google and Google marketing objectives or typical marketing objectives. Take a list of them and then go and chat to the owner of the business and then say, you know, what do you want to get? Which one's these most applicable to you? And then try and retrospectively fit it. And then your next paragraphs would then go in to talk about the primary market research methods used by your company or your business, and it would also give examples, and it would also do the same with secondary. And you would try and include internal secondary market research and external secondary market research. And remember, you would use those terms. You are trying to show the examiner you know. So at this point here, you'll be saying something like, primary market research is a first-hand collection of market research data. And then you say, for example, XXXXX uses whatever. So you would go into that one. And you do the same with secondary. Secondary market research is a second-hand collection of data. There are two types of secondary research, such as internal secondary research, which is information from inside the business. And there's external information, which is information from outside of the business. And then you give the examples again. See how I've done that? You're getting your knowledge in there. You're playing a little bit of a game for the examiner. At this point here, though, you are literally just setting out what they use. You're not doing any analysis here because look at the next section. The next section is your report would be what's called the analysis section. So at this point here, you would be saying how appropriate that method of research is. So up above, you said what primary research they use. Maybe you can give an example. So you might have backed it with an example. So you said, like, I don't know, use a questionnaire, for example. XXX did a questionnaire recently where he surveyed current customers to find out their attitudes towards whether they wanted the business to open again following COVID-19. You get the idea. You give the example in that section up here with the background bit, but the analysis bit, you say how appropriate it is back to those objectives. So how does it help it to achieve the marketing objectives? Assessing. So you'll make some points towards it's help because, however, it may not have helped. So remember, you want those words because, however, they're key words on the other hand. So you're always making a counter argument. Also, look at this bit here about assess how it helps to make decisions. So in other words, how does it help the business to make decisions? How is that information from the primary, for example, that survey, for example, the questionnaire, help them to make decisions? Now, that part there, I would like you to stop at in this video. I don't want you to go any further because the specialist marketing agency does need more work, and I don't want us to do any more work yet at this point. So I would like you to start to set that document out for your organisation, set out the primary, set out the secondary, and then obviously, and also start to do some of this content down here. Now, I know what you're going to say. Some of you might be thinking, oh, I couldn't find a business, I'm not really sure. Well, if that's the case, if you scroll down in this document down here, what I have done is I've given you the B Business B marketing aims. I've also given you some secondary research stats that I use. You can see that, for example, one of the forms that I use is YouTube stats. I use newspapers, and I've told you what it gives me. I've got government reports, I've got competitors, accounts, and websites that I look at, as well as the primary research that you know I'll use, such as my focus groups. When I get people around the room, for example, over the target group, I also do my surveys online. As you've seen, where I ask you questions about what sorts of videos do you want to use and view. Now, because obviously, if I'm giving you that information, you've got to be careful because it'll all be the same. That's why I've only given you the overview there. You'd have to take the information I've given you and obviously turn it into what's being looked for above. I actually think this is better if you try and engage with another organisation. However, if not, then you can obviously start to have a go at doing this. Now, I know what you're thinking right straight away. Where did I find that document? Well, actually, if you go into Teams, right, where you will have seen it, and if you go on Teams, I'll go back to the beginning here. So on there, you would go into the Unit 22, click into Unit 22, you would go into Assignment 1 Example, and you would find Student Version Assignment 1, which is a document that I have just shown you, which you can work through. I'd like you to set about trying to do that task for me, and I've produced this video so that you can refer back to it when you need to, because it's not always easy to catch everybody online at the same time. If you do need any help though, drop me an email, as you know, and I'll always be willing to help you.